What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in this one I'm going to be building a white themed gaming PC that is primed for 1440p gaming in 2023. I'll be running you through all the parts that make this awesome build possible, showing you guys how to put it together and taking a deep dive into performance later, testing everything from Warzone 2 to Apex Legends, Fortnite, Overwatch 2 and many more. Let's do this! The Corsair Xeneon 32-inch gaming monitor is a panel that packs a punch, bringing your games and media to life on a vibrant, ultra-slim 32-inch IPS 4K display. It's a panel with some power. What's more, the fast 144Hz refresh rate and nippy 1 millisecond response time ensure you can keep a competitive edge. Learn more about the Xeneon 32 UHD 144 at the first links in the description below, and buy now on the Corsair web store. Now then, let me kick things off with a brief tour of the components in this build that make it possible. For the motherboard and CPU, I've got the ASUS Prime X670E Wi-Fi. It's a board with white and silver accents that's one of the more affordable X670E designs, and AMD's Ryzen 7 7700X. Now, it would be safe to say that AMD's Ryzen launch hasn't been without problems, but with some of their new CPUs adding in the 3D cache technology, as well as cheaper SKUs that look to provide more competition on price with Intel, AMD might just be on a bit of a comeback. Nevertheless, their Ryzen 7 7700X is a very powerful CPU that's well primed for next-gen cards, and while it won't be for everyone, it's going to work really well in the build today. And of course, we'll see how it performs in a bit more detail later. Of course, with this build being a DDR5 based system, I also picked up some new memory. This is a 32GB kit of Corsair Vengeance RGB DDR5. Now, if you take a look at RAM prices in general, they're falling so fast with the next-gen memory tech. And while DDR4 is certainly still cheaper, there's huge advantages to DDR5. Not only are the latencies dropping and speeds increasing, but also if you pick up a DDR5 memory kit, you'll be able to use this in future builds for the next 6-7 years or so. DDR4 was here for a very long time, and for many people, their RAM kit will have seen them through at least 1 or 2 PC upgrades. I'll also be adding in some storage from Corsair, the MP600 GS. This particular model is 2TB, but to save some cash and stick in budget, I'll be linking the 1TB option down below. As always, latest pricing and availability can be found in the description. Right then, so let's go ahead and take a look at this ASUS Prime motherboard, shall we? We've reviewed this board in full over on our website GeekaWhat.com, which last month, and I can't quite believe I'm saying this, had a staggering 1 million visits last month, so thank you for all the support, and I'll leave that linked as always in the cards and down below. Everything we feature in these builds is covered in detail on the site, so if there's any more info you need, that's where you can find it. Front and center, you'll find the AM5 socket, which AMD are giving support for quite some years yet, flanked by some DDR5 memory DIMMs, a PCIe slot with this easy quick release button, all of your M.2s, and then around the side of the board at the back, you'll find the I.O. So we've got display connections, which we won't be using, our super fast USBs, including USB-C, plenty of audio, and Wi-Fi 6E, meaning this build can get connected straight away. In my opinion, there's no reason why any motherboard over, say, $180 or $200 shouldn't come with the inclusion of Wi-Fi. It's a fundamental piece of tech that you need to enjoy any build, and adding in a Wi-Fi card, for me, feels like such a dated concept. So fair play to ASUS, one of their cheaper boards, and they've given us it as standard out of the box. So drop in the AMD Ryzen CPU nice and carefully, because the pins this time are, of course, on the motherboard socket rather than on the CPU. While we're here, the RAM can also slide into place. We'll be using the grey DIMMs on this board. These are the alternating DIMM slots that we need to get dual channel memory support. With a further 2 slots left over as well, you could also add in a bit more memory for a bit more performance later. Say you're into, I don't know, video editing or games that require loads and loads of RAM. 64 gigs, bit overkill really, but it's nice to have the upgrade option there. Storage-wise, you'd have to be careful.
The RAM's not plugged in.
Oh, thanks, Dan. While I'm here as well, I'm also going to add in the storage. You've got to be really, really careful with these next-gen GPUs. They're so powerful that slower, especially SATA and pretty poor Gen 3 NVMEs, often won't be quite quick enough and will cause bottlenecks, which you do not want. So go for something that's either high-end Gen 3 or mid-range, low-end Gen 4, like the drive today. That just sits in our very top slot and fastens back into place when the heatsink returns onto the motherboard. Some progress feels like it's being made, and next I can go ahead and add the motherboard assembly, as we call it, over in into the case. The GPU, we're going to come back and deal with a bit later on. This is the Corsair iCUE 4070 RGB QL Special Edition.
It's actually called that?
Yes, that's actually what it's called. This is basically the Corsair 4000D airflow with no fans and grey accents, combined with the 4000X RGB and white accents, that's then had all of its new LL RGB fans removed, and instead you get these, the Corsair QL Edition, which are best demonstrated. If I rip this off and take off the dust filter, you can see they actually look really, really good. The difference with these to the LLs is that they have RGB hubs on both sides, meaning that you can put the fans in either orientation and they'll still look really nice. Personally, this is one of my favourite cases Corsair have ever made, even if the name's a bit stupid. And to be honest with you, it always confused me that the RGB edition with the glass front panel had more fans than the airflow edition with the mesh. It never made any sense, so I'm really glad they made this, even if it is a tad pricey. Yes, come on, off you pop. Come on. I got one. Aha, there is the second one. So with any case, take off all the panels, keep them to one side, make sure they're safe and you don't smash them. I'm going to pop mine over here. I've got this new microphone in case you couldn't tell, which means I can literally walk anywhere and you can hear me. It's fantastic. Take a look at this. Look at this motherboard. Oh, yes.
Don't go to the toilet.
Yeah, don't go to the toilet with this on, but look at that. Beautiful bit of kit.
Have I got to refocus that now?
You do, yes. Yes, you do indeed. Now you can hear me and just can't see me. PC building. What's the word? It's aesthetic, isn't it? That's the that they say on TikTok. Slider on in. Here we go. Pop it through the rear. Make sure the fan cables are out the way. Always, fan cables are always in the way, honestly. Here we go. Last screw in, and that thing is looking. There's still some work to be done, but we will get there. Now, talking of getting there, the next component is this. Here we go. Cooler. Now, I've taken it out of the box already just to have a bit of a nosy at exactly what we're working with. So this is Cooler Master's 240mm Flux, but in white. So we've got some nice white fans that are not quite as good as the QLs, but should still look good. All of the cables and all that sort of stuff. And then the cooler itself. I wanted to go for a 240 to maintain maximum GPU clearance in this build, and I'm not being funny. Cooler Master have done a phenomenal job on the aesthetics of this. Really, really nice. RGB as well on the fans and on the water block. Pretty slimline water block as well. Nowadays, with all the ASUS patents, you get these blocks that are like this thick. It's just not a vibe. It's not what I'm after. So this is going to work perfectly. So basically you take these two bits, hop them on the water block, and it clamps over the black plastic that's pre-installed on the motherboard. So add on these silver brackets to the cooler itself, then pop some fans on the bottom before screwing the whole radiator into the top of the case. Just a dab of thermal paste is all you need. A large grain of rice is about the right indicator. Doesn't matter if it's a bit messy, as it's all going to get squidged around next anyway. Don't get it on your clothes, because it doesn't come off very easily. Then make sure you remove this little tab doodah before actually sliding the cooler on. So I'm going to do the block first, as I think doing the radiator second is going to be easier. So that slides on nice and easy. Then fasten each of these screws down. So let's get right in there. There's the bottom one and the top one. Yeah, that's feeling pretty solid and looks quite straight. There we go. Pull those through. There we go. Tidy. Then it's just a case of adding on the same screws that you installed the motherboard with to fasten the radiator down. I always start with two, one in each sort of opposing diagonal corner, if you will. So one there. If I just flip that down so you can see a bit more clearly, technically you could put up to 8 screws in the radiator to keep it extra secure, but I often find that 4 or 6 are more than enough, to be honest with you. We're not supporting a huge amount of weight here, and the screws are pretty solid. So as I say, 4 or 6 is totally fine. Okay then, so things are motoring nicely. The GPU is the next natural progression, and I have gone for the PALIT GameRock RTX 4070 Ti. An acquired taste that, if I'm being honest with you, isn't going to be for everybody. However, it is a really, really good looking card, and the 4070 Ti, while somewhat controversial, has proved to be a decent option for those who want a GPU for sub $800 or so, depending on the model you go for, that can provide really solid 1440p and even a good amount of legs as well at 4K. And when I say a good amount of legs, what I'm actually talking about is really, really respectable 4K gaming performance. Now, this is our first ever PALIT GameRock design, and I'm kind of gutted that we can't get a vertical GPU mount into this case. We did try, but unfortunately the one at the front is just not going to provide nearly enough clearance, even if it just about fits on paper. And sadly, you can't adapt the horizontal lanes either to facilitate a vertical mount.
3:28 a.m.
Slide this in, and let's see if our GPU fits. Oh, I can't, this isn't going to work. So for now, you're going to have to look at the front, say goodbye to the front, and slot the GPU in like so. It's still a very, very good looking card though. sitting in that fairly mammoth 3-slot form factor, and at least it's not all black either, providing a little bit of a break to the colour scheme in this build. A few screws will fasten it down, and we'll take a detailed look at performance later. But make no mistake, 4070 Ti, while somewhat controversial, is no slouch. Now to wrap things up, we've got one more part to go, and that is the power supply. Here she is. This is the Corsair RM850. I'll also be adding in some custom white sleeve cable extensions to this build. For now though, I'm going to get this thing in and then take a look at performance. But first, how good this system looks when it's all powered up, RGB to the max in an epic GeekaWhat montage. I'll rejoin you in just a second, but you guys know what's coming next. With the visual performance in the bag, it's next time to make sure this system stacks up in the important part, gaming performance. And to do that, we've tested a huge variety of the latest and most popular titles on this PC. Does PALIT's Game Rock have what it takes? There's only one way to find out. Starting things off with Call of Duty's Warzone 2, here at 1440p high with DLSS enabled and set to quality, this PC pulled in an impressive 135 FPS on average. 90 and 99th percentile results were good too, with all of our frame rates captured using both MSI Afterburner's Riva Tuner and Nvidia Frame View. Move through into Call of Duty's Modern Warfare 2, crank the resolution up to 4K high this time, and enable DLSS once again at the quality preset. 107 frames per second was the result, the outcome shall we say, and here we got a very, very good gaming experience. Now of course DLSS at quality gives you a bit of a performance uplift, but at balanced or performance you'll get even more frame rate. We wanted to give you a worst case realistic scenario so that your results are at this level, if not preferably better. Fortnite at 1080p competitive, basically low with the render distance tuned up to far, and here 324 FPS on average did not disappoint. You can apply these principles to other games if you want to max out frame rate for competitive advantage, but to be honest with you, what I would do is aim for the refresh rate of your monitor if it's 165Hz, and tune all the visual settings up as far as you can go while maintaining that competitive frame rate. 320 is amazing, but it is a bit overkill. Apex Legends at 4K high next up also performed well, 131 FPS on average in a game that ran very smoothly indeed. Finally, to wrap things up, we also put Overwatch 2 through its paces, and at 4K high, it delivered an impressive 212 FPS all told. Gameplay was smooth and responsive, the game looked amazing, and while it's not all that difficult to run, it's still great to see the 4070 Ti coping well here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like rating and get subscribed. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.